Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so I'm sure you guys are all over social media and you've probably been seeing a lot of these Democrats attempting to reframe the discussion around the air traffic controller scandal. Democrats all of a sudden are trying to pretend as if Pete Buttigieg was warning about the FAA being understaffed for such a long time, and actually it was Republicans who are getting in the way. They're basically trying to take our argument and flip it against us, and what a load of crap that is. What do they have, like one tweet of Pete Buttigieg identifying the problem? Meanwhile, for 4 years as Secretary of Transportation, he did literally nothing about it. It's obviously another no-substance, partisan, bad faith argument from the left, and in this video, well, I want to dismantle that argument. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so I laid out the context there in the intro. Democrats are trying to flip the debate, but there's one problem with that. And that problem is, of course, drumroll please, ding ding ding, we have the receipts. And we have, common sense and the ability to critically think. And so first off, I want to lead with this X post from Insurrection Barbie, which I think is going to start off the conversation here great. She made this comment the other day, which went pretty viral. According to the New York Times, 280 out of the 313 air traffic control facilities are understaffed. President Trump has only been in office for 11 days, and only 8 days when the tragedy occurred. So the question is, what the hell was Pete Buttigieg doing? Valid observation. So obviously, air traffic control facilities have an understaffing issue, and it's been an ongoing issue throughout the 4 years that they've been in power. And what did they do? Well, absolutely nothing. But now for some reason, the left wants to pin the whole understaffing issue on Donald Trump, who's only been in power at the time the tragedy occurred for 8 days.
Donald Trump fired the head of the TSA last week and also gutted a key aviation safety advisory committee. And then Donald Trump also implemented a federal hiring freeze, including air traffic control workers, which has been very understaffed in recent years. And now we're just learning that the airplane towers on the night of the crash in Washington, D.C. were understaffed, and one person was doing the job of 2 people. All of this happened under Donald Trump's administration.
Interesting. And look, a lot of people want to pretend as if this issue came out of nowhere, as if the focus on the FAA started only last week once the tragedy occurred, but that isn't the case at all. There's been a lot of concerns surrounding air traffic, especially in the last couple of years, and Pete Buttigieg has been questioned on it.
How concerned are you?
I'm very concerned. We watch these things very closely. If you look at the last decade or so, you would see between 10 and 20 times a year typically that this would happen. This year, we're on track to have more than 20, and even one is one that I would not like to see happen.
So Pete basically knew that all this was happening. He knew air traffic control was understaffed. He knew that near crashes were skyrocketing, and he even said that one near crash was too many. But the question is, what did he do about it? Well, a bunch of useless woke crap, that is. He doubled down on DEI policies, which focused on lowering standards and race-based hiring instead of merit.
They were focused on not safety, but they were focused on changing the name from cockpit to flight deck. Or notice to airmen, they want to change it to notice to air mission. They focused on EVs and sustainability and racist roads. Things that don't matter in regard to safety.
And meanwhile, Pete Buttigieg and the Biden administration pretended that they were fixing the air traffic control crisis by doing what Democrats do best, spending a bunch of freaking money. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats even passed a bill allocating $66 billion to enable hiring, training, and retention of safety-critical staff like air traffic controllers. The proof is right here, as you see on screen, and yet still understaffed. And this is where we could tackle another totally bad faith argument that's coming from the left. I keep seeing this argument being pushed by huge left-wing X accounts, and Pete Buttigieg couldn't have done anything. He couldn't have solved the understaffing issue because they didn't have the funding. I mean, give me a break, they had the funding. And at the end of the day, the issue is understaffing, not underfunding. When you are understaffed, it means you have the money, you have the capability, you can hire extra people, you're just unable to do so because you can't fill the vacant spots. So they had the money to fill the vacant spots, they didn't. Then they passed a bill for additional funding, and still going into the Trump administration in 2025, massive understaffing issues. They haven't been able to hire the extra people needed. We're still hearing about this 3,000 figure, a shortage of approximately 3,000 air traffic controllers nationwide, but apparently it's Trump's fault and not Pete Buttigieg. What an absolute farce, and of course you probably get what's coming next. Yeah, it gets even worse. because we're now getting more details about that lawsuit that's currently being filed against the FAA, and well, it's actually much worse than you think. I'm going to rely on reporting from the older millennial. Take a look at this.
So we now know that DEI policies are responsible for the FAA not having air traffic controllers, as they rejected more than 3,000 applicants who scored 100% on the assessment. This according to a lawsuit filed by Mountain State Legal. According to that lawsuit, over the last 3 years under the Biden administration, there have been more than 3,000 air traffic controllers who have applied to work for the FAA and scored 100% on the assessment. That means these people came in, took the test, didn't get a single thing wrong. They were the most qualified you could be. However, under the Biden administration's FAA DEI policies, they also had to take a second test called biographical data, where basically you're just listing your family's racial history. And based on the scores on that test, which again is just laying out your family's racial diversity, 3,000 of the people that scored perfect on the assessment weren't hired. They weren't hired because they weren't diverse enough. They weren't hired because they were white. More than 3,000 of the most highly qualified air traffic controllers you could have. And they weren't hired because they didn't have enough diversity in their family history. That's not only racist as shit. That's not only horrible policy, but it's also insanely stupid, especially when you think about the shortage of air traffic controllers we currently have. So yeah, we can blame DEI for our lack of air traffic controllers. Just another example of us finally getting the consequences of Joe Biden's failures.
Unfrickin' believable. Democrats are trying to make the argument that Pete Buttigieg was on top of the issue. He was sounding the alarms, but he couldn't fix the problem. I guess because he didn't have the funding, right? No, that's not the problem. What's the next excuse? That there wasn't qualified people? There's just not enough people to fill the roles? Yeah, apparently, there's a good chunk of people who were overly qualified for the role. In fact, many of these individuals actually scored 100%. In other words, we're talking top candidate material, but they were all denied. Why? Because under the leadership of Pete Buttigieg, they were prioritizing racial quotas and DEI hiring initiatives. In other words, they discriminated against white males who were actually testing well and qualified for the job. Holy frickin' moly. But this is the Obama legacy, this is the Biden legacy, and this is the Pete Buttigieg legacy. Which honestly, with Pete, really shouldn't be all that surprising. I mean, what do you expect when you take a woke Democrat who's gotten no experience in aviation or rail and transportation in general and make him the Secretary of Transportation? Do you expect results or do you expect activism? Well, what you got was clearly activism, and now the Democrats are trying to flip the script, rewrite history, and blame Donald Trump, who was in office for 8 days. Give me a break. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Hopefully that clarified the situation here. I've just been following what these big left-wing accounts have been saying, and I thought I'd chime in and give my 2 cents. That's basically where I'm at. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.